Train and Grain Festival. We're filming it right here in Saginaw, Texas.
People all the way from Georgia.
All the way from Georgia. They got them in there all the way from Georgia.
You're enjoying it.
Wow, that's good.
Hi folks, we're the Saginaw Fandangos, and we're here to play a few songs for you. And if you don't know what Fandangos means, it means a bunch of old people, a bunch of old women and one man with tomfoolery and a bunch of foolishness. And here we go with our theme song. A 1, a 2, a 3.
Jim Hilton. That's the children's area.
I'll be Texas, Charlie, Saginaw, and everything will be
alright. My family came in from Illinois in 1910, and that consisted of my mother and my father and my brother Morris and my sister Carol, and mother was pregnant with Samuel, and he arrived in April after they came, and they came on the train, and they got here at night, and Carol says she remembers what she wore, and she remembers getting chewing gum in her hair, and how sorry she felt for her mother. There she was, pregnant, and children running around. Well, when they got here, they got the train, and Thad Hurst met them in the wagon and took them up north of Saginaw. It was at night time, where my aunt and uncle, Fay and Tim Jones, lived. And I don't remember the Hurst boy's name that was there, and he had long black curls. He was just a little older than Carol. I think she remembered that. That Will and Sam Tate came to Texas when the railroads came through, and Will Tate was the telegraph operator. His brother came with him, and they started a store, and he built the gin, and he worked there until in his 20s, until he died, or close to that time. And then Jim McElroy and S.L. I may have the initial Fowler bought it. And they ran it for a number of years. And then Herman Combs. Remember Herman and Daisy? Mm-hmm. And Daisy had a little cafe down here on the corner of Stillman, or what's now Anderson Street, and the highway. A little bitty place, and they lived in the back of that. And then after that, George Carter had it. Now, if there's somebody in between, I don't know. Any of you remember? Those are the Jenners that I remember.
Catherine, do you remember when it was torn down, when the gin was done away with? I have no memory of that. I can't, do you remember that, Cotton?
No, I don't. Sure don't.
It suddenly disappeared.
I remember the cotton yard.
Well, I remember the gin and everything, but I don't remember when it was destroyed. I don't remember anything about it.
I remember seeing the cotton,
Yeah.
stacked up out there.
I said something to Jimmy about it, and his eyebrows went up, and he said, well, you mean Saginaw had a cotton gin? He said, well, I don't remember going to Haslett.
And the cotton yard were across the highway, and that's of course where they put the bales of hay. And also that same area served as a baseball field.
Yeah.
And Saginaw played Haslett and Keller and who else? Avondale. Anybody else that had a team. A picture of the first school. Just all the students in front of it. Sally Gillen was one of the teachers. In that picture, Exa Thompson and my brother Morris are in it. And I think the teacher on the right is Miss Cummings. And that picture was taken about 1911. This picture was taken at the new school building in 1914, and that's everybody that was in school. Mr. Summerfield was the principal, and so that's grades 1 through high school, I guess. My father had for one of the things that he did, he worked at he farmed, he worked at the blacksmith shop, he had a creamery and made golden ruled butter.
Like that.
And Morris would drive the buggy into Fort Worth to take they also made ice cream into town, and to bring ice back. And I've got a picture of him.
He was an ice man.
But that was before we owned that great car. No, we didn't own that. We didn't own that one. That one.
That's too uptown.
Sentimental journey home. Seven, that's the time we're leaving. Seven.
With the Baptist Church, on August the 13th, 1909, this group of people decided it's time to build a church building. So they did. And it's up on the corner of McElroy and South Hampshire. And it burned and they moved to their present location.
There's a building there on that corner though.
No, it burned, it's caught on fire, they built it, it was repaired. They moved the old building, they sold it to someone.
Now, I think it's changed hands several times,
Yeah.
and there's been several different churches there, and there's been a recreation there.
But
There's a church
the
there.
original old frame building was
gone.
moved away somewhere.
The part that's left was a Sunday school and recreation.
Yeah, it's still there.
It's still there, and that's what the present people use is theirs.
The church did catch on fire, but it didn't burn down. It burned partly, and we repaired it.
I was chief of the department then, and we were at Lake Worth on a practice fire, and we got a call that the church is on fire here, and we really did get home.
I'll say.
Right through all these crooked roads and all.
Well, they fixed it back pretty quick, didn't we?
But I'll tell you, we had a lot of fun. Not to say fun, but work and fun. For goodness sakes, we'd a lot of times we wouldn't even get to go to bed at night. Then everything was all grass, and you could just light a cigarette or throw a cigarette out, and it did catch on fire. And you could bet on it. But good night, there'd be days that we'd go twice a day, or once or twice, 3 times a day, just as fast as we can get there.
And it was volunteer then, those early days.
Yeah. I know, I
Yeah, and there
remember
was
the first night that we had the Model A Ford. It had a little water bucket on it, you know. We got a 600-gallon, big one. Oh, it was, didn't have any baffles in it, and you had to be very careful. You did, they turn over. Oh, good go. So the first fire we had was at your mother's house, the old big house up here. Right here on the corner.
Oh, if they're close to you?
Yeah.
Oh, the Turner house?
Yeah, yeah.
Where Turners live, except it was a 2-story house.
It was the big place up there where the church is.
Where I live?
Where the church is.
So wasn't that in Gillen's house?
Gillen.
Gillen's house.
Gillen, oh, the Gillen house.
Oh, big Gillen.
Gillen's
Of course,
house.
of course.
But then, yeah, we went, boy, just rushing down through there, you know, and got that old thing started and lit out. About that time it started to rain. You ain't never seen such a rain in your life. We pulled up in the yard over there and couldn't get out. Things stuck in that yard. Well, we had to unload all the water. Come to find out there wasn't anything to mount anything. It's a switch box, I think.
Oh dear, after all that trouble.
Yeah, but we had to unload all the water. Pour all the water out of it, see? Get that thing out again. Just pour it, muddy, good.
It was 8:20 p.m. Tuesday, February the 23rd, 1943. There was a blast that many people suspected Germans were bombing Fort Worth.
It was during the war, you know, so we couldn't believe it.
That was a hot one.
Yeah.
He died 22nd, I guess it's 23rd.
A second explosion at 11 p.m.
What year is that?
The same year.
It's a building, a Burris Mill.
You know,
Burris Mill
really, Gordon heard it out there, I forget what she done.
in 1935 was when they started to build Burris Mill.
35.
1935.
And then they began to build the grain elevators. They began the closest to it, then those way up there. The one way up there had an explosion one time, moving south end of it. Well, you know, since it's going to be what, grain festival, grain and train.
Train and train.
Well, let's tell a little bit about the grain. They used to grow a lot of grain around here, and they had threshers.
missed it, didn't
And
you?
earlier, I know my father owned one with Mr. Thompson, and I'm not sure whether Redden Thompson or J.C. Thompson for a while, but anyway, I think about everybody worked at the thrash in the summertime, but the one that most of us, I think, would remember was Jim McElroy's thresher. And he went all over Tarrant County to thrash, and his Uncle Tobe was his brother from Alvarado, and he came up and he did the cooking. And to work with the thresher, they paid about $1 a day, but they got 3 good meals, and everybody bragged on Uncle Tobe's cooking. And they got a mid-morning snack and an afternoon snack. And Uncle Tobe's specialties were salmon croquettes, donuts, and fried pies.
You know, that's when they started thrashing. They would go from the east side, and then they go all around to the next year they started the west side on account of the weather. So, sometimes it was bad, and if you was lucky, you know, you'd get it at a good time. And so that's the reason they changed. They'd start one year on the east side of Saginaw, then the next year it'd be the west side.
Joe Willie Gilly, get it more. Even though you're on my right side.
It was taken in 1926, and it's the 5th and 6th grade at the Saginaw School. And teacher was my teacher, Miss Carol Wakefield, and the principal was Mr. Vance Lee Hendricks. And I'm in there, but I'm not going to show you where.
And the post office across there, I can put a 3-cent stamp on a letter, and I bet you a $10 bill would be in Rowan in Oklahoma the next morning. Now I can put a 29-cent stamp on there, and I don't know whether it'll ever get there or not. One thing I remember when Halfless was running this grocery store, Doug Morris was pastor of the Methodist Church. And there was a man, I won't call his name, came by there. Doug was working down there, extra at the filling station for Mr. and Miss Halfley.
He was pastor of the Methodist Church.
That's right, Doug Morris was. And this fellow said, I won $10 down there in a poker game a while ago. Would it be all right to give it to the church? And Doug Morris, the pastor, grabbed that and stuck it in the pocket. He says, the devil's had it long enough. Well, I guess, of course, I knew Howard Thompson was running this store at that time when I first came here. Marvin Green was running this one down here. And just had 8th grade school here in Saginaw. Prof. Taylor was superintendent. I don't guess there's any other greater superintendent ever lived, no Prof. Taylor. And Prof would play a few dominoes.
No theaters in.
Read grocery. Yeah, the grocery store. Now, when we were kids, Mr. Crawford asked me not very long ago how many times he'd carried us down to the New Isis Theater. We had to go to the show every time it changed. And he'd take us down there to let us go, and then we'd stay in there till he came back to pick us up. There was a drugstore on the corner, I think it was Rexall drugstore there on the corner. And on Friday, we'd have 50 cents. We'd go to the drugstore and get us a mall, and then we'd have 25 cents left. And we'd get in the shop for 9 cents, and we'd have a dime for 15 cents left for popcorn and Coke.
We had ice cream parties Sunday with different people's homes and played games. And I don't remember dominoes and part two that much, but I know that's where where we met on Sunday nights.
Or what would you like, where the skate on that round skating rink?
Probably, yes.
Well, the house that I was born in, and it was built, 10 maybe years before I was born. It's still standing. It was built by neighbors. So they don't build things like they used to. It was designed by a neighbor, and I believe his name was Allen. Uncle Ham, we called him, designed that house, the building that, and he was the one in charge of building it. So our old family home burnt, which was, according to what Mama said, it had a dirt floor in it, and was just 2 rooms, and so it burnt, and I think we lived in a tent. I wasn't around when it happened, and the neighbors came in and built that house. But it doesn't look like much, but it's still there.
anybody had the post office box had to come down to the post office to pick up their mail, and we wanted home delivery. As far as retail businesses, we had the service stations up and down the highway. We had one little neighborhood small town grocery store, and I envisioned a supermarket, and a shopping center. And during my tenure there, we got started with Rancho North down there, and finally we did get to see the supermarket and the shopping center. And this is when things were really taking off and growing. A lot of us didn't know how to plan for the future. We did some planning, and I was saying we started negotiations of water and sewer because we saw it was more than the city would handle, and the thing with trying to get a little more size to the city by backing Fort Worth off.
But I wanted to go back and tell a story. We have had a lot of police ups and downs, but I guess the way I really got initiated to the city of Saginaw, I lived just out on the outskirts. As a matter of fact, the fence of the place we were renting at the time was about where Saginaw city limits started. So we were not in the city at that point, and I was rather young at the time and drove a 1957 Chevrolet that just could not be outrun, and or I thought it couldn't. But Saginaw police cars had some pretty hot vehicles, and one I remember that ran like 147 or something miles an hour, and mine only ran 130 something. So anyway, we communicated with the police in that manner, but then I learned rather quickly that you watched your speed around the city of Saginaw, and I was driving through town one day and a police car pulled me over. Well, I was young and cocky, and I bailed out, and I met Police Chief Mike Howard, and he was in a pair of Levi's with a cowboy hat on. I'll never forget. It was on Watauga Road, and I said, "Now, Mr. Policeman, I was not breaking the law." And he said, "No problem. I wanted to talk to you about that horse you've got." And Mike and I became very good friends. In fact, we kept horses together. We rode horses, I guess, until Mike graduated from North Texas and went on to serve with Secret Service and federal government in Washington. We were best of friends. But that's how I got introduced to our police department here in Saginaw, and we've had some good times with that.
For a small town, I think we've had a lot of good forward-looking people that haven't withdrawn into the borders of the city. Our folks have gotten involved with the county, with the other cities around here to do dual projects together. And I think that's why we've always been progressive and forward-looking, is that we haven't just closed in among our own borders and said we'll interbreed and just do our own thing, which usually doesn't produce much.
But of course, the first park we had in town, JD probably remember, was behind the city hall. The city bought some playground equipment, and we had several volunteers install this playground equipment. And this park probably caused more commotion, very short-lived, than the other one, because I don't know if you remember, they were digging the holes for us to cement this playground equipment in when we severed the telephone cable that had the telephone lines to the fire department, police department, and such.
I think we're so fortunate in this area to have the support for the youth and for the senior citizens. A town of less than 10,000 with 2 community centers in it is fantastic. A town that supports their youth at the county livestock show each year to the tune of, what, $15,000 to $20,000 or so dollars. And we're not talking about company contribution type monies. We're talking about money out of people's pockets that go to buying these kids animals and things and supporting them. And then let me challenge you to find another city that has gone to the trouble to build and develop a domino hall for the domino players, the people, probably the most used building in this city It's used 7 days a week. Those fellas go down every afternoon, play their dominoes, and it's part of the log cabin down there. As far as I'm concerned, it's worth 10 times more than we paid for it to build it for that use. And I guess I'm selfishly saying that. I'm a domino player. My dad, going on 81, is a domino player, or was until he got to where he could see. But I just feel like that those people, a lot of them are still living today because they've utilized their minds. It gives them something to do, and we've still got the senior citizens as a result of.
And I think one of the highlights, we were talking about accomplishments that we've had here in the city. I don't think anyone's mentioned our new $1 million plus park that we're going to be dedicating along with our Training Grain Festival here. But Commissioner Johnson, of course, was our mayor at the time we got the grant to do this with, and as Mayor Flippo and myself were on the council with him, so I think that's been another one of our accomplishments, and something that all of us and all the citizens of Saginaw can be very proud of.
I'm familiar with it. I walked the trail around it several times.
Mrs. Julia Frazier, who was the cousin of Bill and Sam Tate, came to Texas to take care of her invalid aunt. She married Mr. N.B. Frazier while she was here, and in later years, she always went to the cemetery on Saturday afternoon and took her hoe. And some of her neighbors, Miss Collins, Ms. Owens, and Ms. Watts oftentimes went with her. And Miss Frazier used to often quote this little poem that she made up. Old Johnson grass never dies. It just acts that way. You pull it up and at dawn again, it's back to greet the day. So friends, if you should ever pass my grave, please linger as you pass, just long enough to say a prayer and pull the Johnson grass.
Got my